Hello. I was chatting with my mate over brunch just before, and in the middle of it, I came up with this metaphor, and I'm equally proud of it. I need to document it. I need to kind of get all the ideas on the table so it's something we can work with, but I think it's really good. I think you'll agree. So, we were talking about ethics, virtue ethics, effectively, how one should act in the world. And we were talking about utilitarianism and Kantianism, and I don't know if that's the right word, but all these different virtue ethics sort of things. And I got around to the golden rule: treat others the way you want to be treated. And I explained that as the golden rule, which I'm sure a lot of people have heard before, and I don't think it's too crazy to see why. Because if whatever uh, ethics you live yourself by, you want to manifest those to other people, it's a signal to other people that that's what you value. If you treat others the way that they value themselves and you can kind of collaborate in that, then that breeds collaboration, mutual wellness, all this good stuff. And to illustrate that, I created an image of a golden strand that connects the center of my consciousness with the center of your consciousness or awareness, either or. And if two people are completely committed to the golden rule, and it breeds authenticity out of them, because whatever your um, reason for being is, whatever your virtues, if you commit to those and emit that aura, and other people are fully able to get that with transparency, and then they commit the same, it creates a perfect line of communication, at which point all of your other ideas can be hung on that line. So it's literally like a clothesline where like political ideas can be hung on the golden rule, cultural ideas, economic strategies, um, just cultural values and norms, all of that sort of stuff. If you connect on the fact that other people are being authentic to themselves, and you are, and you fully immerse yourself in that idea, then it creates a really strong bond that transcends above all other ideas, and then at that point, no conversation is off the table. I don't necessarily feel like I have to explain the golden rule to you, but I think that the line analogy is vital to what I'm going to be saying next. Now I'm going to give you another hypothetical. Imagine that you're flatting, or roommates if you're in America, and there's five of you, and you've all said, I'm going to do my dishes, you do yours. Everybody holds that standard, and it goes well for a while, but somebody gets swamped with uni, and then they start slacking on the dishes. Everybody else notices that after a while, and then they start slacking on the dishes, because you get what you give. You get what you give. And that becomes the new status quo. It's not a taut line anymore. The clothesline becomes looser, and it's got a bit of give in it. And that lowers the bar. If everybody does that, then the entire structure, integrity of it becomes loose, and it kind of flaps in the wind. And the wind could be like chaos in this situation. Alternatively, if the other four people hold their line and ask for the other person to step up back into the status quo, then it maintains the line. But it's up to the collective to determine what that line looks like to hold it tight. But on the flip side, I don't think it should be completely taught the whole way through, because, like, Christianity, for example, is absolutist, and you hear about that in Star Wars: only a Sith deals in absolutes, that sort of thing. If the line is completely tight, then there is absolutely no forgiveness to be found, and because as soon as you drop the ball, you're sinful. And I think our society has seen an evolution beyond Christianity, because that is so rigid and it goes against our human instincts. Like, there are situations where potentially you should tell a lie, even though the perfectly taught line would say authenticity, transparency, you should never tell a lie. Sometimes you should, for the greater good. Like, this is utilitarianism now. You should tell lies, you know, if your wife says, "Am I fat in these jeans?" It's a kind of sexist example, I don't know, but potentially you should, because otherwise it's going to ruin date night. It's going to spiral off in a crazy direction. It's best to just tell a white lie, doesn't hurt anybody, and then, you know, there is a little bit of slack forgiveness. And like when I say that guy, your flatmate, was being slack on the dishes, I literally, like, slack. He was being slack. He wasn't pulling his weight. If everyone's pulling their weight and you're literally pulling weight with a rope, it is a tight rope. But I think like there is a balance there. So for example, like let's imagine that everybody has this line with everybody else, and if you were to weave all of those lines together, it creates a social fabric. We've heard of this analogy before, and it's incredibly apt. So if everybody's weaved together, it actually does need a little bit of slackness, because it gives that kind of tango, the waves of life. Say that I'm going through something rough, I can be going down while the majority is going up, and I can use that slackness. They can forgive me for being weak for a little while, but then support me and be compassionate as they lift me back up into the status quo. But let's compare this to a sailboat, for example. If the sail is completely tied, it actually doesn't have the ability to catch the wind and use that as momentum, because it doesn't have that flexibility in it. And again, wind in this situation can be just the chaos of life, the winds of change, you know. But alternatively, you don't want the fabric to be too slack, because then it's not going to catch the wind either. It's going to be very limp, and we're not going to be able to move. So we need a certain level of flexibility, an area of forgiveness, but we also don't want to upset the integrity of the social fabric. So yeah. And then, for example, I don't know if I said, yeah, I'll just say it again. Pretend that somebody, their mum passes away and they have to be slack for 2 weeks. We should let that person just hang in the balance for a while. And everybody else around them should hold their lines tight, because if you imagine the social fabric and one piece hanging loose, the social fabric should be taut enough that person can just hang there, and then we need to gently bring them back into the fold rather gracefully, without like, we can't just put up with that behavior forever. But there's a level of compassion there, and it always comes back to the golden rule: treat others the way you want to be treated. Like, if that were me, I wish I could just take that breath, and I think, like, taking that breath, that breathing room, that is the level of slackness that we need to be able to afford to the people around us. So I think I could weave this into my spiral idea, the model Samaritan, but I'm not going to in this video. I think that's something for me to do at a later date. I just needed to get this idea out there now, so it is understood, the metaphor is in place, and it can be worked on either by me or by you as well. If you want to take this and run with it, then absolutely go for it. It's not necessarily mine. I just happened to come up with it. So yeah. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Yeah, I'll chat soon. Catch up. So there's one more idea that I didn't weave into that video, now watching it back, this is like where it might get a bit abstract, but I think it opens the door to a lot of interesting ideas. I'm studying philosophy at the moment, and for example, I might be able to say, man, I've been really slack on my studies recently. I haven't studied in 2 weeks, for example. And yes, I am being slack, but what's interesting is that when I speak about the golden rule, there is always two people in that discussion. It is treat others the way you want to be treated. There is a reference point, and then there is me in contrast with that ward there. And what's interesting about me saying I'm being slack when I'm with my, I'm not contributing with my studies, is that there is no other reference point there. So there is no real slack in the line. But what I think it might be is that I am being slack in the triangle of me, myself, and I. Like one of those three are slack, or two of those are being slack in reference to the third one. Um, I yeah, I'm very hazy on the implications of what this might be, but it feels right. Like if I am being slack, there is a standard that I'm holding myself to, and then there is the action that I'm actually doing. So there is like a disconnect there. But one of the alternatives to this idea is that the reference point is actually God or the creator or however you want to say it, in that there is a somewhat a destiny or a dharma that I am meant to live up to. It's the life that I am meant to live. I'm not necessarily saying everything is predetermined, but I am an ambitious, I'm curious, there are doors that I want to open, and if I signed up to study philosophy. If I'm not studying, then I'm not opening the door that I said I was going to open, and I am being slack. And who am I being slack to if there is no two reference points? So there's a few options there. I think there is like an abstract idea of the Sam that Sam is trying to be, and then the Sam that I actually am right now. But yeah, am I being slack? Like a lot of self-help books over the last 20 years have said that lower your expectations, like don't shoot for the moon and like always want for more, because you're never going to be happy. Just lower the bar. Just be a bit, cut yourself some slack. Cut yourself some slack. And just be happy, Be like align those two. Be the person you are now, cut yourself some slack, bring down that ambition, and you'll be happy. But I don't necessarily agree with that. Like, I think there is an element of me wanting to strive to be better than I was yesterday. And is that me? I feel like there's like a magnetism or a gravity that I am always being pulled towards my potential. I think that's the self actualization in me. Like that's the highest need on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I think that's his. If that magnetism is there, is that mine? Is that what life has destined for me? Like, and by extension, is that the creator? Is that God? Or is that one of me, myself, and I? Like, did one of us three come up with that? Did all three of us do that? And we're all spiraling towards it? And then is that where the slackness comes from? Like, if I'm falling short of the decisions I know I should be doing, like that's like procrastination, and that makes me feel terrible inside, because I know that it's not necessarily weaved into the social fabric. I think it is ultimately, but essentially it's not really. It's just it's me, myself, and I. So how do I hold myself accountable and cutting myself slack? Where are the reference points? And I think that is an incredibly fundamental philosophical question that I'm gonna be committed to for the ages. Like, if you've got any ideas, I am very open to hear about them. This is a discussion that I only just signed up to study philosophy, and I'm living my best life at the moment. Like, I get to think about these sorts of questions every day, and if you want to help me answer them, be my guest. I'm open to all. So yeah, fascinating stuff. Thanks for listening again. Sure.